The official countdown is on to December 7, and as you know, we are 6 months away, and so the ball has rolled, the ship has sailed. Tonight, I'm going to talk to the Chief Executive Officer of the main opposition, National Democratic Congress. He's the General Secretary, he's Fifi Kwetey. He's my guest tonight. We just have a lot to talk about. We've spoken to the National Chairman of the NDC just last month. He was here, but the Chief Executive Officer is a man who is overseeing the day-to-day affairs as far as the campaign is concerned. And so we want to get a bit more from him today on some of the key things you're doing ahead of the elections. And so there's a lot. We will be talking about the EC's handling of the voting equipment. And the EC generally, they have their relationship with the party is one that we know isn't quite rosy. What really is accounting for that? The party, he himself has done a few press conferences where he has concerns. He's raised potential for this year's elections to be rigged, and he believes that there's something fishy happening at the Electoral Commission. We'll really probe to see what really is at the heart and the basis of these suspicions and allegations that the party has against the EC. We will talk obviously about the track record. This week, there's a lot of conversation around the corruption, the anti-corruption track records of this government and the previous government. John Dramani Mahama over the weekend he launched an attack on the current president and the government about its corruption record. That obviously is a big deal. Every election year, corruption is one of the top issues that people consider when they get into the booths to vote. We'll talk about that. But I'm sure you've also noticed that the party's minority leader in parliament is currently being tried. The party has had calls to address a press conference a couple of weeks back, a massive one indeed, on the back of that leaked tape, that secret recording. It's a subject now of some controversy. The minority have issued a statement saying they will be solidarizing with Dr. Keselato Forsing, and until the case is heard and done on any given day, they're not going to be going back to Parliament. That definitely is an issue that they will be dealing with in Parliament, but I'll talk to him about it too. But I'm also interested in the campaign going into the December 7 elections. There is definitely too much to talk about. And they've also been making some promises on the campaign trail. In times like this, all we can do as journalists is to ask the questions on your behalf about the promises you're making, because you can then assess if you can believe it or you can choose to ignore it. But I'll ask the questions for you. And at the end of the day, we want to get some clarity on how they're approaching this year's election. They are the government in waiting. We have to ask them the questions. Stay with me. After this, Fifi Kwetey is my guest here on PM Express. And thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. And it's always brought to you by Syntex tanks. It is strong, it is tough. And if you're looking for a tank to store water in, you want to choose Syntex tanks because it is the first to introduce the double-layer tank. And now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex tanks is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana. And we now introduce you to the customer specs order. It is bespoke. They come in different sizes, colors and shapes. You just have to call them and specify what you want, and they'll make sure you have it. They have 7 years warranty, and you can call them. They are across the country, 0244 335 168, or shop online at syntexgh.com. My guest in the studio is the General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Fifi Kwetey, is with me. Thank you for joining us here on the PM Express.
Thank you very much, Evans. Happy to see you. It's been a while.
Great to have you, yes.
Absolutely.
You have 6 months to go now.
Yeah.
How's the campaign faring, the campaign to regain power?
I would say we are leaving no stone unturned. We officially haven't launched the full campaign yet. What we've done so far is what you call pre-campaigning. Hopefully soon we would come out with the campaign management. The whole structure will be unveiled, and after that we would launch the campaign and also launch our manifesto. Then with that, it means we are in full gear, ready to go.
But John Mahama has been doing quite a bit of touring already. Mm-hmm. That's pre-campaign campaign?
I would say that normally the campaign is declared officially open once then you can talk about the real campaign having started. But generally, I mean, once he's been elected as flag bearer, every everything he does is part of the campaign, because that's the whole process towards December 7th. So I would say that, yeah, he's done a tour of the whole country across all the regions, done what you call a proper listening tour, met different groups. And of course, I mean, you see that's being very copied avidly by the typical copycats in our friends, trying to do exactly the same thing that John Mahama actually inaugurated in the previous.
You mean Dr. Bawumia is copying you?
Of course, I mean,
What aspects of your campaign?
Oh, but you can see it clearly. Everything that he's doing, he's just basically trying to copy John Mahama, meeting groups, asking for questions, the same thing that we used to do. We launched, ahead of 2020, we have what you call the People's Manifesto. And that People's Manifesto simply meant listening to the people, picking their views, interacting with them, getting questions, and so on. And that also led to coming out with our manifesto in the year 2020. And our flag bearers continue the same process, I mean, ahead of this campaign as well. And that is what busily they are doing. At first, they used to focus themselves largely on rallies and stuff like that. Now it's no more just that. They are not trying to copy, but it's fine.
But early days, I mean,
we were the first party in the Fourth Republic. In fact, we celebrated our 32nd anniversary just a few days ago as the first main political party in the Fourth Republic. So it's normal for them to continue copying what we do.
Yeah, but the evidence doesn't suggest that there's a copies, you know. I mean, there's a campaigning of meeting groups, which is what John Mahama has done, which is what Dr. Bawumia is also doing, but he's also been to homes. Today, for example, he's been to homes in the Shantu region.
Copying at Tamils, effectively. That's it. I mean, it's about copying us.
But nobody owes a right to campaign strategy in terms of
you have seen
where you go.
Well, you've seen what MPP has consistently done from 1992.
Which is?
They've never done any of that. So effectively what it is they are doing now is copying what John Mahama brought in the year 2020 and is continuing now.
What is John Mahama's strategy then? What do you think is copying that John Mahama is doing that they were not doing before?
I just told you.
Going
that the whole meeting different demographics, different groups, listening to them, trying to pick their thought in order to come out with our policy platform proposals that we did ahead of 2020, which again John Mahama has continued doing ahead of this campaign, is clearly something that they are doing.
But candidates in the
adding
past,
to it what Prof. Mills used to do in terms of
the door-to-door campaign. But candidates in the past have always done identifiable groups, is what they call them, the professional bodies. John Mahama did it in the past. Nana Addo did it in the past.
Can you recall Nana Addo doing what we did ahead of the year 2020?
I recall Nana Addo meeting, in fact, before 2016, when he was in opposition, he was meeting GUTA, he was meeting the professional bodies, the doctors, he was meeting lawyers. Yeah. That is standard campaign practice in this country.
If you watch exactly what happened ahead of 2020, and which is happening now ahead of 2024, what our flag bearer has done is gone across the length and breadth of Ghana and made different people in all these regions. That's exactly what they have copied. And Nana Addo never went across the whole of let's say, if it were original 10 regions of Ghana, meeting different groups into place. No. What they used to do was typically go to regions and do typical rallies and stuff for the nation. That's what they used to do. So clearly, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with copying. Just have to be honest enough to admit that, yeah, you are looking at what your opponents have done and trying to copy them. Nothing wrong with that.
But that's politics. Politics is just have making
the honor,
sure you
just have the honor to accept
that you are with your opponent.
Just have the honor to acknowledge that, yeah, you're copying your opponent. There's nothing wrong with that.
So, talking about the campaign, though, 6 months to go. Mm-hmm. You're yet to launch the structure, official structure in the campaign. Aren't you behind time here, considering that you are in opposition political party?
We are not behind time, because we know exactly what period we want to do the official campaign. You recall that election is campaign officially launched too early, because you need to also pick properly. Because once you launch, it means you are going full-fledged all the way to December 6th ahead of the main election. So you're going for a particular timing. So we basically have been working according to schedule. So according to our schedule, we are not behind time at all.
Why 6 months to go? I presume you will do this soon, this month? Mm-hmm. 6 months to go. You are going to be launching the structure and the campaign team around him this month?
We will announce in due time, yeah.
This month?
I'm saying we will announce it this time. I'm not.
Are you hesitating because you're afraid that you'll be undercut?
The platform here to make an announcement. So I'm saying that announcement will be duly done very soon. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just curious, what has led you to tell yourself that we want to wait till now before you start giving us indications of a launch? What is the strategy?
Because there are a number of things that need to be in place. Okay, I mean, as a political party, you clearly have to make sure you go according to a plan. And now, according to our plan, we've had processes relating to, for example, over the last several weeks, for example, we've been very busy with the registration, which is very critical, because if you don't get that registration done properly, you are actually not in a position. It's like the time of sowing seeds. If you don't have those seeds properly sown, it means the harvest is not going to be that good. And we are dealing with an opponent that clearly, over the last, let's say, let me say 2020 and again in 2024, is preparing to do exactly what it is they know how to do best, which is depending on Electoral Commission to do a lot of things for them. We need to be absolutely on top of our game. So we needed to make sure we were totally ready to make sure that nothing goes wrong in that respect. So those things needed to be done. Prior to that, if you notice, we also had a number of engagements which John Mahama has been doing in terms of meeting people, trying to get all our policy platform in readiness, and that is all part of the engagement as well. So we are going accordingly in order to make sure at the time we are ready, we are launching our campaign, coming out with our manifesto. Then we go. Of course, I forgot to even mention the most recent one that happened, which had to do with the outdooring of our running mate as well. So it's all part of that whole process.
Yeah. And talking about your campaign, when you launched you outdoored your running mate, the national chairman said something about where you are in terms of the commitment of group soldiers and party leadership to the cause this year. And he says that there are people already jostling for positions, people actually putting themselves out there and negotiating already for positions in the government that you haven't even contested to win yet. And was warning them about complacency. You were there in the auditorium when Johnson didn't get to make that. You are suffering a complacency crisis, are you not? If people are already pitching themselves at
I'm sure you heard the flag bearer immediately explain that if anybody is doing that, then the person is actually wasting time, because he's got different things up his mind. So that tells you it's always good in every contest to find every opportunity to get your people completely to be focused. And I think that was what you're trying to do. Is just focus, just focus, just focus. It's normal in politics sometimes to see, should I call it, the level of frustration, the level of anger, the level of disappointment, the economic meltdown, the suffering that is going on, and assume that somehow that is going to be enough for you to win an election. But I can tell you that for many of us who have been here before, I mean, who wrestled to take MPP out of power the last time when they were in power, we know that you never are complacent, especially when you are dealing with a desperate political party. This particular political party we are dealing with here is literally an entity that cares about nothing but power. That's really what it is. Fundamentally, it's about power for them. That's why often they get the power and the governance become a total disaster. Because for them, it's like do anything just for power. Anything you've got to do for power. No principles, no convictions, just do anything for power. So when you're dealing with a group like that, especially one that today literally believes that, listen, they've made enough money, therefore they can use their money and do whatever they can with it. Like we saw in Asinov when they tried so hard to use money to literally bribe their way into winning, and the people rejected them. And of course, the same group that believes that, oh, listen, we've got the Electoral Commission working closely with us. We've got our own people who are commissioners as well, and therefore we believe that we can use them to do what we got to do. You need to make sure you keep your eye on the ball. And the chairman was basically just saying that, listen, forget about all the difficulties that the economy is going through. Don't assume that that alone is going to land you into victory. Remain focused, and let's make sure we cross that line.
What have you done to these individuals who are jostling for positions already in the next government that you haven't even contested in yet? You must know them. You must send a signal to those who want to be like that or are actually doing so, that this is something you won't tolerate.
I don't know them. Because clearly you must appreciate that for some of us, the level of commitment we have There's no way you even have the courage to come and be telling me anything beyond December 7th. Because as far as I'm concerned, when you're dealing with MPP, until you cross the line, you should never think that it is over. Because I mean, you should remember, in 2008, even when it was clear that they had lost power, when it was clear the result even had come that clear they had lost power, in the very final minute, they tried to steal the election in the strong room. That is who they are, a bunch of desperate people who stop at nothing. Even if you go to changing figures, like they did, getting figures out of Ashanti region to try to change the result in the final hour. Evans, you remember because you were there that day, and I told you about the shenanigans we were doing in the final hour. So we are dealing with a very desperate political party. So if there's any group that thinks that it's going to be easy taking out these very desperate people, especially after they have spent 8 years that they have profited, corrupted the system, made all kinds of money, totally destroyed the economy, and they are afraid that they are going to be persecuted, they are going to be prosecuted. The desperation is even more massive. So I'm actually surprised that anybody will be thinking that it's a done deal when you know the level of the desperation that we are facing in this political party. So I wouldn't know them. And I think the message sent by the national chairman clearly should be enough for some of them.
To win an election, you have to learn from your mistakes. There's something that Joshua Kamba said in March this year that I found fascinating. He was a former national organizer of the party. He was on Kasapa FM. And I want to quote him. He said he did an auditing. He was sent to Kumasi on the back of the 2020 defeat to do an audit to find out what happened in Kumasi. Quote, it was established that almost 80% of our branches were non-existent. So on one particular day of election, who were our agents in the 2020 elections? He says he went to one particular constituency in Kwadaso area, and this individual who was your agent admitted to him that the pink sheet, he was helped by the NPP agent to fill it. And then he says that before the 2020 elections, I met with party leadership and a campaign team, and he mentions Professor Joshua Alabi, the campaign coordinator, among others, in attendance, and informed them that if we don't select the right people as party agents, we may lose elections. And exactly what happened when he made the warning. What have you done to fix these?
Let's say it this way, that these problems, problems that occur, MPP faces similar issues as well, just as NDC does. The issue is that you always have what you call strongholds of opponents. And in many of those strongholds, you can never always be completely sure whether the people who even pretend to be your people are yours. MPP faces similar issues in strongholds of NDC as well, where you cannot completely be sure. So yours is to make sure you put steps in place to do double verification. I would say that you can't completely eliminate it, but what you can do is to try to minimize it. Because don't forget as well, there is no, I have a feeling that a time may come where we may have what you call equipment or devices that will be able to know when somebody is lying. But there are people who are really very good liars, who can pretend they are with you when they truly are not. And that's why you have people who play the double agent business. And all over the world, they happen.
What are you doing to fish them out if they are still within your ranks?
You can try to minimize it. So what we've done, for example, is to have, through the whole process of election this time around, at the branch levels, because that really is where it starts, to make sure that you no more just assume that everybody who is presenting themselves to run for your branch positions are necessarily your party people. Because, listen, it is the case that there are instances where even MPP leaders would sponsor some people to go and stand in your political place. It could happen also on vice versa. It's part of the political game. So
are you doing same in to the MPP?
Let me just say that what you do is you want to make sure you minimize it, and we have taken steps to make sure we can minimize that.
What steps are those exactly?
I don't need to disclose all that in public.
But people need to know. Your listeners, for example, your party's foot soldiers.
Those who need to know.
Who have heard Akamba.
Those who need to
want to know.
Will know.
Is the party ready this time?
This platform. I have ways of communicating to my people exactly what we know. So let's just keep it at that.
But you have ways of fishing them out this year.
Absolutely.
Something will change about your strategy this year in dealing with this particular problem.
Absolutely, because we do realize that until we deal with, especially the massive stealing that goes on in the strongholds of the NPP, it's going to be a very difficult battle.
You have plans and moles in the NPP too?
I don't need to disclose more. All I'm telling you is that we are clearly aware that we have to deal with the clear should I call it, election rigging that goes on massively in the strongholds of our opponents.
Let's talk about your relationship with the Electoral Commission. Since we started, you've mentioned them a few times already. What is it with the NDC and the Electoral Commission that every step they take, you have an issue with it?
It's simple. I mean, we've never in our history had what you call people who are literally card-bearing members of a political party who are commissioners of the election of the EC. Never had that. In this particular, what you call electoral commission, you can, for example, mention Bosman, who clearly, from his even pronouncement, tells you that this man is just basically an MPP man.
No, there's no evidence to
support.
There's no
evidence of war.
He was the head of the political science department.
The man actually stated
at the University of Ghana.
The man actually stated plainly that the problem of Ghana is the NDC.
But that doesn't make him MPP.
Listen, that pronouncement can only come from somebody who clearly has a problem with the NDC.
But that doesn't make him MPP.
What else does it make you? If there are two major political parties, or let's say there's two big football teams, and you as a referee, who is supposed to be in the middle, as a neutral referee, you clearly make statement to the fact that you have a problem with one particular...
Just as a critique
of
the
NDC. That's not your business. That's not your business. Your business is to make sure you provide what you call a fair, neutral platform for the two big parties to be able to have a contest to determine who wins elections. And if you, in that center, clearly show that level of bias, it's obvious that you have an agenda. And why would I trust you? I won't trust you. Every step you make, I know that you have an agenda because it is your interest to ensure that the party you favor wins. And of course, that's not all. Even the recent appointment that they added to, another one, which is what you call a communicator of the MPP, is one of the people that they put again as part of the commissioners. And this all is happening under this government. This never happened in our history. So how on earth do you want to trust a group of the nation?
But let's look at the evidence, Fifi Kwetey. Yeah. This is the EC that supervised the 2020 elections, in which you made significant gains. You clawed back more than 500,000 votes from the 2016 elections. And you actually evened the odds in Parliament. They supervised that process, considering where you were coming from in 2016, that hefty historical defeat that you suffered there. That evidence, doesn't it rather show that your allegations against the EC is anchored on nothing more than suspicion and conjecture? But if you really look at the evidence, they are neutral.
Has it occurred to you that actually could be rather a manifestation that there was so much level of anger, disappointment in this country, that the real result should actually be far, far more if it were not for what it did? The first time in our history, an electoral commission was not able to come out with a result that could be trusted. Change the result how many times? That tells you the level of mistrust that the people of Ghana and NDC must have of that particular commission. So the point we are making is simply that electoral commission, we do not trust you. By the very composition of your leadership, we believe that you have an agenda. You have a bias. We don't trust you. And therefore, if we don't trust you, it means that we are going to, as it were, watch every step very carefully. Your duty is to prove that you really can be neutral.
Can they ever earn your trust?
Yeah, by making sure that they do what ought to be done. I mean, very fairly. Now, if you have a situation where a few months to election, part of our press conference, we told you about the disappearance of what you call, election equipment and devices. And up to today, they've not been able to properly tell us how and under which circumstances where in a room with CCTV cameras, such equipment can vanish. And up to date, they've not been able to have any investigation to show exactly where they are. That tells you that there are question marks, big question marks. And that's what we as the NDC are not going to simply relent on. We have to keep letting the country know until they themselves are able to stand up and ensure that they do simply their job as professional, neutral body. It is not your business to want to help any political party. We are not asking you to help NDC. We are just saying that stop pretending as if you are part of the game. You are not. You're supposed to just be a referee. So do your job and then let the people of Ghana make a decision as to who wins elections.
But this is also the Electoral Commission who this year, after protest from you, one, abandoned the bill in Parliament, the legislation to make the Ghana card the SO ID document for voter registration, something we were pushing. You objected to it. They withdrew. You objected to implementing the November election date. Again, they backed off. You objected to their decision to not allow agents at the vote transfer centers. Again, they backed off. In all these circumstances, hard evidence that this is an electoral commission that is ready to listen to the opposition party.
Has it not occurred to you that in the past, these problems did not even occur because IPAC was a platform where major conversations are done, and IPAC operated on the back of consensus. So when there is an issue where there is no complete consensus, as much as possible, you don't move forward with it. So what we've had in this situation has been that right from the time they took over under Nana Akufo-Addo, they turned that IPAC to become a platform that is no more a consensus-building platform, a place where effectively they just bring as many political parties as possible, and no matter what the protests occurs from, let's say, a major political party like NDC, NDC basically can be shoved aside and you can just go according to what you call the numbers that you have. But that never was what IPAC was. IPAC was supposed to be a place where consensus building was a major bedrock on which decisions were taken. If that continued, a lot of these that you're talking about, that had to bring the situation where NDC was protesting and asking for changes, that would never have happened because we would have had a conversation at the level of IPAC, had an understanding, on the back of the understanding, then we proceeded. So that itself should tell you the problem that we've had. Because somehow, I don't know whether they felt, listen, NDC can do whatever they want. We would go ahead and do our thing. You don't do that. NDC basically is a major stakeholder in our elections. It's a political party that is controlling, in parliament, we're controlling about half of parliament. You don't take a decision as if NDC doesn't matter. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do because as long as it makes NPP happy, I'm good. No, you don't do that.
Do you at least give them credit for listening to your concerns and backtracking?
What choice did they have, really? What choice did they have?
But they are the electoral commission. We've had the electoral commission before say,
if you're an
well, it is our decision and we don't care what you say.
If you're an electoral commission, conscious of the fact that your job is to be an independent, neutral, professional body, it's your responsibility to want to make sure, as much as possible, there's consensus. You can't behave as if the country is your property, you do whatever you like. That's not the way it works. So I'm saying that we're happy about the fact that effort is now being made to build that consensus. That's where we used to be. Gradually, we are getting there. And that's how you ought to.
That is to the EC's credit, that effort that has been made to build consensus.
Yeah, but it would have been nice that we never even departed from that consensus in the first place. So it's like this. We used to be at a certain position. You actually made a retrogression. And now you are coming back. You expect to be applauded. You've wasted our time to begin with. You didn't need to even go back to be coming forward. You've wasted the country's time. We actually should have been making progress and not going back and now coming back.
I just wonder, have they reached out to you to deliberate to try and build bridges?
Oh, I would say in Evans Mensah, the electoral commissioner, when we had that conversation that was brought together by the Peace Council, I'm sure you remember that. NDC, we brought our issues and the various political parties spoke. Evans Mensah actually made a statement to the fact that NDC should come back onto the table. There was a need for NDC to be back on the table. And on the back of that, we've resumed our meetings in IPAC. And I would say subsequently, it's been an effort to try to build back that same consensus. And that really is what we've been asking for right from the word-go, that we needed to continue on the back of that consensus. There was no need for electoral commission to be in the middle as if they are now part of what you call the contest against the NDC.
So there has been an improvement.
I'm saying that clearly they are back to the level of consensus, and we hope that that must continue. Going forward, we should never go back to the place where it becomes, listen, as long as MPP is happy, I'm fine. That should never be.
Let's talk now about the real issues that may decide the tide this year. What is the NDC's trump card in 2024?
Let me say it this way. We're talking about two major political parties here. Largely one political party, NDC, is a party that stands for conviction. And we are fighting with NPP, a party that largely stands for convenience. And convenience simply means, as far as NPP is concerned, it is just about anything for power. And that's what you're seeing all over. Lack of capacity to be apologetic in the midst of the suffering. They continue to gaslight the people and deceive the people. That really does not our economic mismanagement at all. It's all because of some external difficulties. That's why the problems are. The city has collapsed. No, it's not because we have mishandled the economy. We are unable to keep our promises and the suffering of the people. No, it's not actually coming from us. It's actually external circumstances. That is a political party that does not believe in truth. That does not believe in truth at all. Doomsaw is so evident, everybody can see, no, it's not really doomsaw. It's just, what word did they even use? They try to deceive the country, some plants or some equipment that were at fault, because they simply do not have the courage to say, listen, we actually are confronted with an energy crisis. And this energy crisis has been brought because we are not able to, as it were, keep the system the way it's supposed to be kept. That courage, like for example, John Mahama, that courage said, yes, we actually have doomsaw. And I promise you that we're going to fix it, and he did fix it. So it tells you the main difference between the two political parties. One has a conviction to be able to say, no, things are the way they are difficult, we can do better, and therefore we'll try to do better. So if there is a crisis, you're trying to bring the country on board, acknowledge the difficulty, possibly draw views and opinions from everybody in order to be able to come up with solutions. This group believes that, the ordinary people are not smart. So just continue deceiving them, throw slogans here and there, lie to them. Hopefully they have even forgotten about the fact that I made some of these promises that I'm unable to keep. So we are putting two major platforms together. One platform tries to be as candid as possible. The other platform believes that, listen, all I need to do is to continue making promises left, right, and center, because I made a lot of promises ahead of 2016, and somehow I won power. So why not? Let me continue making more promises, even without acknowledging that it is my mismanagement that has brought the difficulties that we face today.
But the NDC is also making significant promises. You're very alike in those promises too.
No, if you say we are very alike, it will not be the same. For instance, if you watch our policy platform properly, you know, for example, that as opposed to what we saw ahead of 2016, when there were reckless statements to the effect that you don't actually need to borrow at all. There's so much money that is available in the country. If I come, I don't even need to go and borrow. I can simply toll all the roads in the country and construct every road. I mean, there's so much money at the level of the central bank. There's no need for borrowing. I will just move the country away from taxation into production, and every problem will be solved. I can solve the problem of Ghana in 18 years and bring about. So these are reckless promises that were made in 2016. The promises we are talking about are not anything that is reckless. They are things that are realizable because we've been there. You understand? So, for example, we tell you, for example, that on the question of education, we think that there are genuine concerns at the level of the education in the free SHS, for example. We want to ensure that once we come back, we bring all the stakeholders on board in order to have a proper conversation and see how those problems can be resolved. That's a genuine promise. So these are promises that are much more what you call pragmatic promises based on the fact that we've been there. So we know that, listen, you can't lie to people about it.
So your trump card is being honest with the Ghanaian people?
Being a platform of credibility. A platform that is telling you this is what our track record has been. And our track record is there in terms of what it is we achieved with limited resource over a period of 8 years and what we accomplished. That, for example, in 8 years, with the kind of resources we had, we never, for example, saw the cedi depreciate at the level that we have seen over the last 8 years.
But
the cedi depreciation at the level of 4 cedi to the dollar. Today we are talking about over 15 cedis.
That track record by 2016 has led us to an IMF program.
Yeah, but then listen. The fact that there's an IMF program,
which is a concession. Anytime a government goes there, there's a reason why this government didn't want to admit that they wanted to go to the IMF. It's a concession that you failed, and you need an external entity like the IMF to come and sit with the king to regulate the economy.
That again is the tragedy they have. That again is the tragedy they have, that they are not honest enough to tell the truth to the people of Ghana. Going to the IMF doesn't mean that you have failed. It never meant that.
What does it mean?
Going to the IMF, it's just like, for example, you are an entity, let's say you're a business entity. There are instances in the life of every business that you could have challenges. And that challenge requires, for example, that your bankers look at what you are doing and see how it is they can support you. Sometimes it's not even the money, because IMF per se doesn't even give you money for development. So the roads we are building doesn't come from IMF money. The educational institutions, infrastructure that we are building doesn't come from IMF. The resolution of doomsday didn't come from IMF. What IMF simply does is to tell the rest of the world that, you know what, even though there may be difficulties with this economy, they have the track record to show that they are on track in resolving the problem. So that confidence is all that was needed. So it's not the money of the IMF. So the fact that you go to IMF doesn't mean necessarily that you are. For example, in 2015,
you lost policy credibility.
Do you actually know? Do you actually know the meaning of that?
Yeah, you lost policy credibility to the point where you had to go to the IMF to get that. In fact, it was a blessed memory. The former finance minister from your own stock, Dr. Fifi Kwetey, who said that your government had lost policy credibility and must go to the IMF, which you eventually did. That is admission of failure.
No, it's not. Because don't forget, in that same period that you're talking about, that the economy was in difficulty, we're talking still about an economy that was still recording positive growth. We're talking about an economy that was on the way to resolving a major energy crisis. We're talking about an economy that was delivering what you call the biggest...
A self-imposed energy crisis.
Hold on. It's not self-imposed.
It was self-imposed.
Why is it self-imposed?
Well, you were in power from 2009, and you saw the generation challenges. It never added on until it caught up with you.
Are you sure about that?
In 2013, 2014, 2015. That is the problem, was it not?
No. Doomsday has always been a cyclical problem that happened in the history of our country. Happened during Rawlings' time, happened during Kufuor's time. So what you were seeing happening again when we came back to power was simply the same cycle that happens every now and then. That's what happened. In our case, what happened that it became compounded, not just because the water level was low, but because there was force majeure that affected what you call the getting gas from the gas pipeline that comes from Nigeria. So those were major issues that you had nothing to do about. And what did you do? We resolved it. In fact, I would say the other thing that compounded it was the fact that the growth in the economy, especially when oil came on stream, created a situation where the demand for energy became far more. So we needed to ramp up what you call investment. So it was not self-inflicted. It was not a problem caused by NDC. It's a problem that occurs regularly, and we resolve it. So when you're talking about policy credibility, that's not what it is. Policy credibility simply means that the investors out there need an assurance. They need an assurance for an external person to the fact that things are being well done. It doesn't mean that things were not being well done. They just need that assurance. And that's what they were given. In fact, if you go through that policy properly, a lot of those policies were homegrown policies. There's nothing new that came from the IMF. Those are the policies that we had already been implementing. And IMF simply needed to give that what you call endorsement to the rest of the world that this policy is on track. That's all. It's not because the economy was being mismanaged at all. Anyway, but the point I'm making is that our track record is a track record that showed that even though things were not perfect, the economy was not destroyed like what we have seen. You did not, for example, see the level of suffering that we are seeing today. You did not see businesses struggling at the level they are struggling today. You don't see the level of unemployment that we have as we see today. We don't see inflation go all the way to 50% in our history. Never happened. You did not, for example, see our economy become so downgraded that it became what you call junk status. You never saw that. You understand? You saw the city having difficulties, but the city never depreciated with the rapid level which is up. Well, so it's a totally different situation that we have.
All those things you point to, in spite of that, the IMF has done an evaluation recently, and they've been very clear. The IMF chief executive had said that the recovery is back on, that in fact Ghana is making faster than expected recovery, and we're on track to fully recover. That definitely is the credit to the government that faced unprecedented challenges.
Which challenges?
Well, you know already.
Tell me about it.
The first pandemic in our lifetime, for example, is something that they dealt with.
Really?
Don't take my word for it.
And that pandemic didn't happen in Togo?
That is...
It didn't happen in Guinea?
That is the IMF point. That substantively, the economy is back on track, and they're expecting faster than expected recovery.
And we are supposed to be applauding because whereas the whole of the sub-region has continued to grow, whereas the whole of the sub-region did not have this level of inflation, we are supposed to be applauding a government that is supposed to have had the greatest level of resources in the history of our country. Over the last 8 years, the amount of money that has been available to this government, in fact, in that particular year of election alone, between July to December, the amount of money that became available to this government was about 1/3 of the total money that we had in 8 years in power. And they had that for just 6 months of 2020. and still landing us in the kind of disaster that we are in. And we are supposed to be applauding them because there's supposed to be some recovery getting to the 2024 election. Nothing to applaud. So I'm talking about the fact that we're talking two main platforms here. One platform has credibility, tells the truth, tells the people of Ghana who the issues are, and say you can trust us because we have had a history of managing this economy. We've not had the kind of disaster that we've had. Another one led us through promises to total destruction of our situation. And how can that group, led by what you call the vice president, who is supposed to be in charge of that economy, today tells you that, oh, you know what, if you vote for me, I will be able to do things that I have not been able to do as the head of the economic management team. And the people of Ghana are supposed to be believing this man, the same man who is in charge of the economy. This economy that's totally...
Is he in charge of the economy?
He's in charge of the economy.
He's not in charge of the economy, is he?
We
have the finance minister and we have the president. The president, everything is in the name of the president, including the budget, is it not?
So why is he the head of the economic management team?
Well, that is not a constitutional creation.
Oh, really?
The finance minister is constitutionally, legally,
but
the man who takes the budget to parliament and the economic policy of the country.
But somehow he's in charge of digitalization, right?
Well, he is, he says.
Okay.
That's his own
So
word.
when the dollar was arrested and the padlock was sent to the IGP, then he was taking the credit, right?
Well, his government was taking the credit.
He was taking the credit.
Well, he was speaking about it.
He was taking the credit that we have arrested the dollar.
Yeah, it's a we.
So
he was talking for his government.
So you see the hypocrisy now.
Yeah, but
when it goes good,
but he was talking about we.
Oh yeah, but he was taking,
as in his government.
But he was taking
takes credit
for being the
not
digitalization.
him as an individual.
He says the digitalization champion, right? So when it comes to some things which are positive, he takes the credit. But when it's negative, government must take the credit. That tells you that he's not even qualified to be a leader. Because leadership is about the capacity to take responsibility. When you are the head of the economic management, things go bad, you must have the courage to admit that things have gone bad under my watch. That's what you do. That's what John Mahama did. Taking responsibility.
But John Mahama was the president when things went bad.
Oh, interesting. So when John Mahama...
He was the president.
So when John Mahama...
It's different.
Okay, so ahead of 2012, when there were difficulty with the economy, okay, difficulty with the economy. As you know, 2012 had some pretty difficulty ahead of the election.
Yes.
John Mahama, the head of the economic management team, has been blamed for those things because he was in charge of the economy. That's what it is. You don't run away from responsibility.
In 2012?
Yeah, 2012.
Well, when he began to serve the unexpired term of John
No,
Mills.
I'm talking about the difficulties that happened from January. Prof. Mills passed away somewhere in July.
In July, yes.
Yeah. At the time, Baumia was doing all these noises, making the noises
the lectures.
on the economy. That was around February of that year. Those blames were actually being hit on the head of the economic management because he was in charge of the economy at the time. So why are you running away when it's your turn? It tells you the level of irresponsibility. It tells you that we have somebody who wants to become president who simply hasn't got the courage to admit when it's wrong, who wants to take credit and run away from the unfavorable things. And that makes you not good enough to be the leader.
A few things about promises, though, and you talked about education earlier. When it comes to education, you've made a few promises. In fact, in your 2020 manifesto, and I've heard John Mahama still talk about this, free SHS is a key plank of that still. You want to expand free SHS. Quote, and this is on page 70, the next NDC government will expand the free SHS program to cover students in private senior high schools in underserved and deprived areas. That is adding on to the budget for free SHS. Currently, it's costing the government $2.7 billion just to run it. And they've struggled sometimes to get the funds. You've seen the challenges in our schools. And you're proposing to expand it. Where are you going to get the extra funds when $2.7 billion is hard to come by? In 2025, when the economy is predicted to get even harder, how are you going to fund this?
If you listen to us carefully, and it's not just even us, all the major stakeholders in education, parents, teachers, all the groups have called for a proper review of the free SHS policy. And one of the things that they've kept saying all the time is that the situation where government is forcing to literally pay the fees of even people who have paid is something that has to be looked at again. That is a major plank of the conversation relating to the review. It tells you there are still ways in which you can have a proper review in which proper resources can be allocated to places where the real needs are being felt. And that conversation is a conversation
So
that we've said in our manifesto as well that we are going to have that review.
So
One of the first things we're going to do.
Which parts are you going to cut to save money to then to accommodate this expansion?
If you follow exactly the clamor of not just parents but also of teachers, asking that there are many things that parents can contribute, it tells you that you can actually find ways in which you allow parents to play some bigger role, where government resources can actually go into making sure greater quality is provided, lot more is expanded to help a lot more people who are in need.
What does it look like under the NDC government? Are you suggesting that under your government, parents who can afford will pay their fees?
It's not just us who are saying so. I'm saying that one of the things we've said is that we are going to have a proper review of the whole free SHS. And we are going to listen to exactly the call that is being made, not just by parents, but also by teachers and by all people who are concerned in education. And that call, if you listen to that call carefully, and I'm sure you have monitored it, a lot of that call is saying that there are ways in which we can allow greater participation by parents who are willing to make a contribution. And I'm sure you, for example, Evans, you will be willing to make contribution to paying for some of what your children are having in secondary school. The same way it's happening in other.
But the promise has already been made, and if you're making this promise, then you must know where you're getting the funds to do it. I'm asking specifically where you're getting the funds to accommodate this expansion.
They just told you.
No, but you haven't. You said, well, the parents say...
No, I just told you that if you have a proper
parents
review,
who can afford cannot do it.
No,
so what specifically will you do?
If you have a proper review of a program, which program means, for example, that all the government is doing at the moment, which is not enough, parents have a way in which they can make their contribution. It simply means that government, therefore, is in a position to use the resources.
So you will go, so you allow specific parents to make contributions.
I'm not finished. Yes, because parents themselves are telling that we can make a contribution. Government is preventing them from making a contribution for political purposes.
When you say contribution, how? Some parents should pay fees?
For example, if you can't pay some of the fees of your ward, why would government want to force you to not to pay? If, for example, as the former finance minister himself said, he's in a position to, as it were, contribute to the education of his children. If he can, why not? If that's what the review is going to bring, that, for example, means that some contribution can come from parents who are willing. It means government resource can be used to be able to...
So the next NDC government will allow parents who can afford to make contributions to the free SHS?
As part of the review, definitely.
On that point, the government this week, in fact, the majority leader has actually said that they will be introducing a bill in Parliament to make the free SHS law, to turn it into an act of Parliament that will bind successive government. That could be you in 2025. What's your party's thinking on this?
Does it not occur to you that's exactly what our friends are about? For them, it's all about politics. They are not, for example, concerned about the challenges that is facing the implementation of the free SHS. They are not concerned about the fact that a lot more needs to be done in terms of the feeding of the children. They are not concerned about the fact that a lot of the infrastructure, a lot more can be done about the infrastructure. They are not concerned about that. For them, it's concerned about Nana Akufo-Addo brought it, and therefore let's leave it so it can be a legacy for Nana Akufo-Addo. It's all about politics. That's why I'm telling you that this group is all about convenience. Instead of being obsessed about how we can do that the quality can be higher, they are thinking, let's come to Parliament so we can make a bill so Nana Akufo-Addo, even until he dies, he can know that I brought something and he's there. That's all they're concerned about. NDC is concerned about how we can make sure this quality, this education becomes far more quality. That's why when we were in office, we wanted to make sure we roll this in a manner in which it can be done properly, so the quality doesn't suffer. If they had followed that formula, instead of rushing it the way they did, all the problems that they are facing today would have been properly, because you would have expanded gradually according to the resource that's available. That would have been far more sustainable. But the way they've done it now, they created difficulties for themselves, and they are too shy. That's why they are hounding out headmasters who are bringing out the issues, and I'm sure your own station have had often occasion, for example, to listen to people who are within the sector, who are telling them about the problem, and they are afraid to speak, because why? They are trying to make this so political that for them, anybody who speaks contrary, that person must be persecuted.
Will you support the bill?
Support
the free SHS bill?
For us, it's not an issue. I mean, listen, free SHS, we've not said we are going to cancel free SHS. We never said so. We say it has to be reviewed. Review means it has to be improved. It means that it has to be done in a way that quality can be ensured. That should be the conversation we should have. Not trying to follow this desperate political party that thinks everything is just about politics. That's what they are concerned about.
So you're not opposed to free SHS?
We've never said we will.
But will you support the bill that makes it law?
I just told you that our concern is to make sure that the quality implementation is safeguarded. So when it comes to the parliament, our MPs, their job is to make sure that bill's conversation should be about how the quality of that program can be enhanced.
Okay.
Not about the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo.
So if that is guaranteed...
Let me say, not the legacy of Nana Akufo-Addo of the NPP that thinks that this is just about politics. That's not...
You seem to suggest that you believe this proposed bill is just,
it's just politics.
To protect his legacy.
It's just policy. But that's what it's been for them. A lot of what they've done is just nothing but politics. All these, they are what? How do they call it? One constituency, 1 million. Have you ever heard of that again? $1 million for every constituency. Have you heard of it since then? No, because it's just politics. Or what's the name? One village, one dam. Have you heard anything about them again? Just politics. Even the 1D, 1F. Politics, for the most part. Politics for the most part. Because that's who they are. It's just about politics. For them, they believe that, listen, everything is about just do anything so you can take power. And when you take power, what do you do with the power? Crash the economy, destroy the lives of the people, make corruption to become the order of the day. And that should not be continued.
So if this bill meets your criteria, which is that improves quality, and your members are going to improve that, you don't mind an act that binds you?
Absolutely. If there's any group that has shown total commitment to the education of this country, it's been us. We started the implementation of free SHS before they took over power. And the way you do it is to make sure you do it in a manner in which first you take care of those who are the most vulnerable. That's why we made sure that we were going to communities to make sure you put infrastructure to allow them to have access, day schools, because you wanted to make sure as many as possible have it. Then you gradually now move to others in other places. So that's how it ought to be. So for us, it's about making sure quality is always number one. For them, it's about politics. Education has become what you call football that they are using just for power. We think education is the very bedrock on which you can build our country. Therefore, the quality of it cannot be compromised.
Talking about Parliament, though, Dr. Kiyosatufo, senior minority leader, is currently being tried. You had press conferences where you told us clearly that this you believe is persecution.
Absolutely.
For which reason you've said that your MPs have actually issued a statement this week to say they will be there solidarizing, and if they're not done, they're going to Parliament.
Absolutely.
That sets the tone for Parliament is back, as you know, for pretty acrimonious next few sit-ins in Parliament. But this is the rule of law. This is how it works, is it not?
Oh, yeah? What does it work?
Oh, if you suspect somebody,
have you forgotten?
Charge him, prosecute him, let him defend himself.
Maybe we've forgotten about the very history of this political party we are dealing with here. This is the same political party, when they took over power in 2001, officially declared that the reason why they have what you call the fast-track prosecution was to ensure that NDC leaders were jailed so that NDC as a party will cease to exist. That's been their mindset. As far as they are concerned, rule of law is something they mouth, but in reality, their aim is simply anything you can do to destroy your opponent. That's what it is. So when you're talking about rule of law, which rule of law? With these people, a whole attorney general is caught on tape, telling a witness to go lie and mislead the courts, create the impression that he was sick. That's the attorney general, the man in charge of justice. The same one, actually, and I can tell you, saying that he really would have wished that he didn't have to do, but he's under pressure to do because the system wants him to jail at two forcing by every means. And that information will be coming out properly for the country to get.
You have a tape on that too?
In due time, you hear it. So how on earth do you believe?
Because I've seen that in one of the processes filed in court.
How on earth do you believe? How on earth do you believe that this is supposed to be, rule of law or any justice? This is nothing but political persecution. The aim is that jail a high-profile person in the opposition party, and that may be able to give you room to say that they are corrupt people, and then you can win power. That's what it is for them. And which is sad, because if there is one group that has shown the level of corruption unprecedented in our history, is them. And ordinarily, people who live in such glass houses should actually be careful, but they seem not to be afraid at all. But their moment is coming, and that moment will soon catch up with them.
And that there is Fifi Kwetey. He's the General Secretary of the NDC. He's been my guest tonight. This is a political season. A few things he said, we'll be monitoring. We'll be launching our manifesto tracker. Promises that have been made will be scrutinized further. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.